Greetings and welcome to our daily walk through the scripture for October the 14th. Your readings for today find you in Jeremiah chapter 26 and 27, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, Psalm 85, 1 through 13, and Proverbs chapter 25, verse 16. Now, Jeremiah is experiencing the don't shoot the messenger situation going on. As you've read over the past couple of chapters, you've seen that Jeremiah has not exactly been popular for his prophecies. And as a matter of fact, we see a scene in these chapters that talks about him being threatened with death, him being spared with death, but also hearing the story about another prophet named Uriah who did not escape death. And I think sometimes this is where we worry about as being followers of Christ, of proclaiming the truth, is what our persecution looks like. Here's the reality of it. We don't experience persecution like Jeremiah did for two reasons. One, we do not live in a country where that kind of physical persecution actually happens. Now, we might face derision, we might face insults, we might face laughter, ridicule, but we usually, as a rule, generally do not face death for our proclamations of Christ. So we got to remember that we don't need to fear for our lives in this sense, but there are people in other parts of the world that are very much fearing for their lives. And we have missionaries, brothers and sisters who are in other parts of the world who, if it was discovered that they were following Christ, they would absolutely face this kind of persecution. So we need to remember to pray for them, to care for them, and to love for them as we carry out our ministry here in a much less hostile environment. However, that doesn't mean that we don't face hostility. We certainly do, but we need to make sure that we have boldness and not worry about those kind of situations, and instead that we need to be making sure that we are proactively continuing to engage people in the gospel of Jesus. And that's the funny thing is that we don't face the persecution that Jeremiah does, and yet we hesitate to do this, to share Christ with people, to share the gospel with them. And it's not like we're facing that kind of ridicule. You can't help but ask the question, what is it that holds us back? And I think the truth is that what holds us back is our sinful self. It is simply ourselves and our desire to want to elevate ourselves rather than elevate God. It's our desire to not be embarrassed. Pride is a very dangerous thing. Pride is something that can make us create unrealistic situations in our head that might, uproot us from doing what we need to do. So that's our word we need to look at from Jeremiah. But I also want to jump over here to 2 Thessalonians 3 because Paul is trying to warn against idleness here. Now, this is an interesting thing because this oftentimes is used to justify not helping someone who's homeless. This is also, I think, used in another dangerous way and we live in this society now much more than ever, of overworking. And we do both of these things. Paul here is talking about people that have literally stopped working because they were expecting Christ to come back, and they are doing nothing, and they have become freeloaders, okay? Within the church community, we have to have discernment, ultimately, when it comes to serving people. We want to err on the side of helping people and serving them, and if we're proven wrong, so be it. I would much rather be proven wrong in helping someone than be proven wrong because I didn't help someone. But Paul here is telling us that we need to make sure that whatever we do, we are doing everything that we can to imitate Paul, who is imitating Christ. We need to make sure that we are not being a burden to others, but instead we are being servants to one another. Now, that doesn't mean that we should overwork. It means that we need to be working with purpose. When Paul says, as for you, brothers, do not grow weary in doing good, they're talking about work with a purpose, and that purpose is to ultimately glorify God. That's ultimately what our work should be doing. We should be looking at what we do and making sure that we are focusing on God and giving God the glory. I don't know that idleness is necessarily our danger. I think idleness can also look like work that is useless work. And so that's where we need to be focusing on. So when we look at this about weary about doing good, we need to make sure that the good that we are doing is truly good work that honors God. All right, there's our conversation for today. We'll talk more next time.